Xbox is in a very sad state right now, and it sucks for more than just the corporate bottom line. It sucks for those that have lost their jobs, it sucks for those studios that have been closed, and it sucks for the gamers. Ultimately, what's happening at Xbox is bad for the industry. We've all known for quite some time now that gaming isn't a fun hobby anymore, it's a business. Gaming has become a corporate thing, and all that matters is the bottom line. If that line isn't met, well, companies like Microsoft will do what they just did. And here's the thing, Xbox wasn't the first to do something like this, but it is the most significant corporate move we have seen thus far. I've been an Xbox consumer since 2007, and I never thought we'd see the day where Xbox is no longer competing with PlayStation and Nintendo. I never thought acquiring all those studios would not pay off, especially within literally a year of buying them. Xbox is struggling to make money, and there's a few reasons for that. One of those things is that they're not selling consoles. And why is that? Well, they aren't making good games, not many have been successful, and they've also decided to basically create the same hardware in back-to-back generations. Game Pass is also becoming more of a liability, and it turns out maybe the major acquisitions made last year weren't such a good idea, or maybe Microsoft had other things in mind. I want to give my thoughts on the current state of Xbox after these recent events, and there's a question that has popped up in not only my mind, but I've seen other people ask this as well, including other gamers and gaming journalists. And that question is, can Xbox be saved at this point? Well, let's see if we can answer that question by the end of this video. So back at the beginning of May, Microsoft closed a few studios. Those studios were under Bethesda, and those included Arcane Austin, the makers of Redfall, Tango Gameworks, they're known for creating Hi-Fi Rush and the Evil Within games, and then Alpha Dog Games, which is known for the mobile game Mighty Doom. Roundhouse Studios will be dissolved, and what remains of it will be absorbed by ZeniMax Studios, and they're known for The Elder Scrolls Online. Apparently, 1,900 people lost their jobs in this round of cuts, and hey, let's remember that they let go of around 10,000 people last year. And that's where I want to start today. Most of the time we sit here breaking down games, we sit here talking about the good and the bad, and developers end up getting bashed a lot based on their design decisions, live service models, and the lack of success a game might have. And yes, that criticism has been warranted on many occasions, but I'll never sit here and advocate for people to lose their jobs. And I don't think game developers have the kind of freedom they would prefer when it comes to making a game. Because it's not about the fun of the game anymore, it's about how much money can the game suck out of the wallet of every single gamer out there playing that game. And it's not the average game developer that gets to decide what Microsoft does with their money, like buying studios. It's not their decision to have their game go on Game Pass and not be sold in the traditional sense. And every company wants their developers to make the next Call of Duty or the next Fortnite. Well, hell, Activision just wants a new Call of Duty game every 12 months. They couldn't even keep their word last year after they talked about taking a 1-year pause from releasing a new game, which would have given them plenty of time to make a legit MW3 game. But let me stop there before I turn this into a Call of Duty rant. The point I'm trying to make is that big companies like Microsoft are severely damaging the industry. Why would people want to come work for these studios owned by Xbox when they could be shut down even after making a successful game like Hi-Fi Rush? Yeah, I can't say much in defense of a game like Redfall, but we've seen in many instances of studios being forced to time crunch and release games that are unpolished and a buggy mess. I just think it's an absolute slap in the face that Xbox can go ahead and buy these companies like Bethesda and shut down their studios within 12 months of owning them. Most of Xbox's problems stem from those at the top, but 90% of the time, when change needs to happen, well, those corporate people with the highest salaries and their own offices aren't the ones that are sent packing. Like, how many more people are going to have to be laid off before Microsoft steps in and demands change from the top? How much longer does Phil Spencer get to be the poster boy of Xbox? They portray him as a guy that is apparently just like us, and I like Phil Spencer, but when is enough enough? When do others at the top like Matt Booty, Sarah Bond, and Alan Hartman get held accountable for the struggles? The only tough thing that these people have to deal with is explaining to us why these decisions were made in interviews, and it's more torturous, I think, for us to have to listen to this crap. Matt Booty has come out and said that Xbox and Bethesda Studios were spread too thin like peanut butter on bread. Then Xbox president Sarah Bond gets interviewed days after the closures and says that these moves were made to keep business healthy in the long term. And that's interesting because I thought Hi-Fi Rush was labeled as one of the best Xbox games made in recent years. The Fallout show was a huge success. Did they not make any money allowing Amazon to have the rights to make that show? Also, people began revisiting the old Fallout games again. I mean, there's a reason why they gave Fallout 4 a next-gen update, to bring back old gamers, and to give some incentive to newcomers to buy the game and maybe spend money on the DLC. And the problem with all the layoffs that occurred over the past year is that they targeted the specific studios behind Fallout, Gears of War, Halo Infinite, and Elder Scrolls. Will we ever get a Gears 6, Fallout 5, or the next highly anticipated Elder Scrolls game? We've been told for years that games like Elder Scrolls 6 and Fallout 5 will be years away. But how much longer do we have to wait? It's not just about the gamers at this point. These kinds of titles are what Xbox has been sorely lacking for years now, and it's not like they've made a whole lot of new successful franchises that take their place in the meantime. Xbox has been heavily relying on other studios, including many indie studios, to make their games for them. This has been a thing before Xbox even mustered up the resources to purchase all the companies/studios that they did last year. And I've said this a million times in other videos, but part of the reason why it's more appealing to be a PlayStation gamer these days is because they continue to make new franchises. We've seen the creation of some newer franchises of late that have helped sell the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 consoles in these previous two generations. For example, the Spider-Man franchise, still fairly new. Horizon Zero Dawn, that's not an old franchise either. They also have franchises that have been relevant for years like Uncharted and God of War. Nintendo continues to make a ton of Mario and Pokemon games, and not every game is a 10 out of 10, but it's still helping Nintendo be dominant. They've also been able to transform some of their franchises into modern-day successes like Zelda. And one of the reasons why I'm glad that I did not rush out a video on this information as soon as the news dropped is because I've been able to see and hear what other people have thought and have seen how they have analyzed this whole situation. And I'll bring up one good example. I was reading an article by Tessa Cower, if I'm saying that right, from thegamer.com. She wrote an interesting article titled, "The Real Reason Your Favorite Game Studios Are Getting Closed Instead of Sold." As soon as I read the headline, I was intrigued. Microsoft didn't sell these studios for money, they just shut them down. And why is that? Well, Tessa went on to explain that in this article. Shutting down the studios rather than selling them is a smart business decision. Why is that? Well, shutting down studios like Tango Gameworks and Arcane Austin ensures that those studios won't work for Microsoft competitors, and it allows Microsoft to keep ownership of the IPs. When you look at it this way, again, it's a smart business move. However, it's still pretty shitty to play games like this because it affects the livelihood of thousands of workers. Let's focus on Game Pass for a moment. I didn't realize this until recently, but back in December, Phil Spencer admitted just how much money Xbox spends on Game Pass. Xbox spends over $1 billion a year on Game Pass. Like, wow, I knew this would be a big investment for Xbox, but like that much, never would have guessed it. But I guess that makes sense because they have hundreds of games on there. And look, I've always been a fan of Game Pass because I'm a fan of anything that benefits gamers. I thought it was a cool idea for a subscription service originally, and being able to play games like Gears 5 and Starfield as soon as they were released because they were put on Game Pass was really cool. But I'll be honest with you, Game Pass just doesn't interest me as much anymore despite there being over 400 games. There's a variety on there, I'll give them that, and I know there's gamers with a different taste and different interests and different genres and whatnot, but I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of games on there that I could care less about. There's a ton of old games that I could revisit. I could wait to play the latest sports games when they pop up on there later on, but I find myself just sifting through the list every once in a while and I end up not downloading anything new to try. And also, your premier titles on there have to be good. You need a game like Starfield to actually succeed and really move the needle for you. Starfield did help them secure more subscriptions, there's no doubt about that, but you need more than one game to do this, and again, hopefully more games that are even more impactful and more successful than Starfield. At the time of me recording this, there are reports swirling around about Call of Duty coming to Game Pass. A new Black Ops game is reportedly going to release this year, and Xbox wants to put it on Game Pass, which is leading to more speculation. Many are assuming Xbox will add another tier to Game Pass. It would be kind of shocking to see them just throw Call of Duty on there for anyone with some sort of version of Game Pass. Activision would lose some money with less Xbox game purchases, but they literally print their own money at this point with the microtransactions, so I don't think it would be much of a loss. Now, this might seem like it's a good thing for Game Pass subscribers, right? Like, hey, if you love Call of Duty, that would be awesome. But what if you're not a Call of Duty fan? Or there is the negative side effect of, hey, you're going to pay more, because something is going to change because of not only Call of Duty coming to Game Pass, but also just, again, everything happening at Xbox right now. There's going to be either a price hike or, again, a new tier which will force people to pay even more if they want access to Call of Duty. Microsoft has spent a hell of a lot of money recently in an attempt to push Xbox back into the upright position, and it hasn't worked. Not only are they spending $1 billion each year on Game Pass, but they also spent a ton of money on their recent shopping spree. They bought ZeniMax Media, the parent company of Elder Scrolls and Fallout studio Bethesda Softworks, for $7.5 billion. Then Microsoft goes and spends $68.7 billion to acquire Activision Blizzard. They spent $77.2 billion last year on these things, and what did it get them? More assets on paper. But the way they are acting, they act like they haven't gained much outside of that, and that's very scary and disheartening to see. Xbox is in a very bad state right now, and it's truly heartbreaking to watch this. They have been knocked out of the ring of this so-called console war. People want to get rid of the whole console war thing, and I agree due to just how toxic and annoying people get with it. But honestly, in the realm of business competition, Xbox has been knocked out of the ring, and perhaps for good. And earlier this year, some of their exclusive games even went to PlayStation. Those games were Hi-Fi Rush, Pentiment, Grounded, and Sea of Thieves. And then there's the speculation that the next Xbox console will come out in 2026. I'm not the biggest fan of starting a new console era so soon, but honestly, Xbox probably needs it desperately. But here's the thing, they can't just release a new box. This new box needs to be versatile. You need to be able to play this while on the go. You need to be able to travel with it like a Switch. You need to redesign the controller, or at least add some new elements to it, like what you see with the PlayStation controllers nowadays. There has to be hardware changes to compete with what Sony and Nintendo have. And then it's back to the usual problem that they always have. Games. They need games. Not 400 random indie games, old games, and sport games from Game Pass. They need heavy hitters. Halo, Gears of War, Elder Scrolls, Fallout 4, etc., etc. Without franchise staple games and major hardware upgrades, Xbox is just going to continue to be stuck in this hole. So let's end with the question from the beginning of this video. Can Xbox be saved at this point? Maybe. I think it will survive because I just don't see this whole company just closing up shop. But there's nothing right now that proves to me in the moment that they can be saved. And I honestly wonder if Microsoft will even want Xbox in the next 3 to 5 years if they can't get out of this rut. Sorry that I can't give you a definite answer right now, I just think more time needs to pass in order to see if what they plan next will work. The definite answer I can give you right now is that they are out of the real competition when it comes to going toe-to-toe with Sony and Nintendo. Xbox is no longer fighting against the rest of the industry, they are fighting to survive at this point. Well, thanks for checking out the video. Leave a comment. I would love to see your thoughts on the state of Xbox. Do you think they can be saved, or will something drastic happen between Xbox and Microsoft? Go check out some other videos on the channel and consider hitting that subscribe button. You could also find my content on podcasting platforms. Just Google Analyze This Podcast. You could also find me on X and TikTok. X at AnalyzeThis_YT and TikTok at AnalyzeThis54_YT. Thanks again and take care.